Welcome to the Justice Eapen Show, sponsored by Palmetto Privacy. Palmetto Privacy is a Greenville-based technology startup developing products to keep the internet free and safe for all. Go check them out today at palmettoprivacy.com. Today, I'm joined by James Dunn, the host of the Dunn Right Podcast. It's a great show. Thanks for coming on the show, James.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So you're a fellow podcaster. You've got a very conservative podcast. It's a very good podcast. You're a great host. You've had on some interesting guests just in the last couple of weeks. I wanted to have you on the show because you're an Air Force vet. So you've got a unique take on the Afghanistan situation. But before we get into Afghanistan, since now I suspect this is going to be a story for weeks and weeks and weeks because it's such a massive debacle. What just happened today with the coronavirus FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine? Maybe just give an overview of what happened and our president's response to it.
Well, I mean, in my general opinion, it just seems like they rushed the FDA approval of the Pfizer vaccine. It was supposed to be going on for about 2-3 more years. They decided they were going to announced today that was going to be, and then prompted Joe Biden to tell businesses that they need to start forcing people to get the vaccine to come back to work, which to me is all right. I mean, that's the bed you want to lay in, Joe Biden. Go ahead.
And isn't the average time of an approval on a vaccine like 7 years or something? Way longer than what we're dealing with. Yeah,
it's like 5 to 10 years. And so, what's crazy is, there's the so everybody's talking about, the Supreme Court said that we can mandate vaccines. So the Supreme Court case that talks about vaccines, Jacobson versus Massachusetts, was talking about smallpox. And even when they mandated smallpox, it was only after 100 years of the vaccine being out. So it just seems like they're rushing a lot of things right now for political benefit, which this tone deaf administration doesn't understand.
Jacobson versus Massachusetts is a really important decision, and I don't think anybody really knows about it. Do you actually know the story behind the case? Because I don't know the story behind the case. So
basically, in 1905-ish area, because a lot of times the Supreme Court cases take a while to get there, but basically, there's a guy in Massachusetts who the town said that everybody needed to get inoculated for smallpox, and to kind of provide context for this, smallpox had a 52% death rate. It's not like what we have with coronavirus, where it's 0.24% or whatever of healthy
only in people over 70.
Yeah,
does it even get up to that point? Right?
And it's 0.008, and then the vaccine drops you from 0.024 to 0.016 or something like that. So the difference between getting vaccinated with smallpox and getting vaccinated with coronavirus is the smallpox was dropping you from 52% to 7%, which I would say is a significant difference. And so the Supreme Court said that because there is such a benefit to the community and that you can't violate the rights of others by obviously causing them to die because you don't want to get the vaccine, the Supreme Court says that we can limit your rights on that to make you get the vaccine. But I would argue that, the benefit to the community is negligible at this point.
There does seem to be a categorical difference between a disease like COVID-19 and a disease like smallpox. I don't know if the logic in a court of law would hold up, but in any case, getting to the Supreme Court to overturn a case like that would take years and years and years. They've been wrong before, though, right? The Supreme Court's definitely been wrong before. So, and then what did the president say today after the Pfizer vaccine got FDA approval?
Yeah, he literally came out and he just pushed everybody into saying, hey, you know what? Businesses, you guys need to start putting pressures on your employees to get the vaccine because now it's FDA approved and there's no reason why people shouldn't get it. So,
So, and this is what fascism is. For all the people on the left who for years and years and years have been calling us fascists. I mean, I talk about this almost every show, but Schindler's List is a movie about the government colluding with a company and to oppress people. And it's that's what fascism is. When the corporations collude with the government. So you started your podcast middle of last year.
Yeah.
And you have been consistently putting out an episode like once a week, it looks like, for that time. I mean, if you've been going on for more than a year, you must be seeing some success with it and having some pretty interesting guests on. I mean, what kind of traction are you seeing?
So yeah, it was crazy. So to be totally honest, for me, I'm the token conservative of my friend group all the time. And
really?
So when it comes to, I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, which is predominant. Well, it used to be really liberal, and now after all this COVID stuff, it's looking like it's starting to swing back the other way. But a lot of my friends are always asking me about my opinion on certain things, and I had a friend who had a podcast, and I came onto his show one time, and he's like, "Oh man, you should do one of these too." And I was like, I don't know. So I recorded an episode, and it ended up doing rather well. And then the people were like, "Well, when's the next one?" And I was like, "I guess next week." And so we've been doing it ever since, and it's just been crazy the amount of people that have reached out and were like, "Hey, can I come on the podcast?" I've had Congressman Gosar on, and
wow,
crazy people. Yeah, so it's like something I've never felt like I'd ever sit in a room with a congressman and interview him for an hour.
And he's a top-notch congressman.
Yeah, well, and then it was crazy. 6 months later, he ended up being the guy who objected to the results of the presidential election, and moving forward in that historical thing. And it's like we had a conversation about him doing that before that, and I was like, wow, like how crazy.
And he's way ahead of the curve on
everything.
Crypto. Yeah, he had introduced a bill into Congress, I think. Actually, it was just before the pandemic started. Because the funny thing is, the pandemic started right in late 2019. We all decided that we were going to panic indefinitely in March of 2020. And I remember early March of 2020, I was in DC because Gosar was announcing a crypto bill. And Eric Finman, I don't know if you know Eric Finman he's on, I think it's Metal is the name of, he's got a crypto startup. Anyway, he helped draft this language on the bill. So you moved from Vegas to Arizona now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way. Yeah, that's kind of what happened. So
what part of Arizona are you in?
Phoenix. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, and I'm biased. Yeah, I'm biased, and it's the greatest city in the world right now. So
I was just in Scottsdale, and I like Scottsdale a lot. I was like, this is like Miami, but in the desert. And it was just really like the vibes were great. Supercars driving around everywhere, great resorts to go and visit, beautiful landscapes everywhere you go. People are really cool in Arizona. And it's just not too, it's a city that's not too blue, which is intolerable. But you said that you're the token conservative in your friend group. I'm actually curious about that. Because I don't know, I'm not from the East Coast. I'm from DC area. I've all of my liberal friends have disowned me. So I'm curious, like what does that mean in the context of Phoenix? Like, is it super duper blue and you're just isolated, or?
Well, yeah. So for me, growing up, I went to University of Arizona, so I do hang around with the intellectual types, I guess. And so I love, I guess a lot of my friends keep me around as their token conservative friend because I speak the woke language a little bit. And I'm the conservative. I feel like a lot of people are easiest like to swallow a little bit. I'm not too outrageous. I feel like I'm not all about owning the libs. I really want to have a conversation with a lot of people, and I go into a lot of these conversations like wanting to know why they think the things they think. So for me,
do you get to have a lot of liberals on the show?
No one will come on the show. They're like, the problem is like I have a lot of cool liberal friends, but they don't.
Yeah,
they're afraid that I'm going to ask him something that they don't know the answer to, or they'll get embarrassed by something. So, I've reached out to other people. I've reached out to local liberals. Nobody ever wants to come on the show. I even had a post on my Instagram, I boosted it and I advertised it. And I said, hey, anybody who's a liberal wants to come on the show and let's talk about topics and just have a good discussion. No one would come on.
Yeah, I've done a couple of, not on my show, but I've been invited on to like panel discussions where I was the only conservative. They did have a libertarian on these shows, and because they were trying to get like the whole spectrum, and I did not get invited back after the second time. They were like this guy. But
it's making too much sense, right?
Well, I really think that's what it is. I think that they kind of, so I'm a Christian, and we can get into the religion thing actually, because I'd love to talk about it. I'm a Christian. I've got but I've been in the other points of view. I mean, I was a liberal. I was an atheist. I was a libertarian, and I have evolved to this point through all those other viewpoints. So I know what their argument is, and I know because I honestly think the political spectrum is not like left and right. I think it's just maturity versus immaturity. Like, you either have a mature worldview that accepts the facts of reality kind of as they present themselves, or you have an immature worldview that says, we can make a utopia sort of at will just by outsmarting reality. And there's a big hole in that belief, which is that you're not actually in control of everything.
I've met more Christians here in Phoenix than I've met anywhere else. Yeah. So okay. I currently attend Trinity in Scottsdale as well. Pastor Mark Driscoll. So I love him too. So and the explosion of the Christianity in the community since COVID has happened is
really since COVID.
Mind-blowing. Yeah, since COVID. So like we had a baptism service a couple months ago where people were outside the door, watching on the TV. Right. Yeah. And it's so powerful, especially like getting to help with some of these baptisms. And, we were baptizing 30, 40, 50. One time we did 100 people in a weekend. And so it was and just like people coming in. Trinity Bible College. What is it called? Trinity Bible College or Trinity? The Trinity Church in Scottsdale. Yeah.
Trinity Church. Okay. But you said you're going to, I thought you said that you were going to a university or a seminary.
Oh, I did go to University of Arizona, but not anymore. But
okay,
yeah.
What's the theology there that they're pulling those kinds of numbers?
I mean, it's just Protestant. I mean,
really?
Yeah,
like biblical, right out of the Bible.
What I love about Pastor Mark is like we literally go through books of the Bible like chapter at a time. So like one week it's like Romans. So we just did Romans. Romans has just been such a powerful movement. And just like Romans 1 next week, Romans 2 next week, Romans 3. We've been doing that for a year. And so what I love is one of his sayings is God's word is timeless, and it's always timely. And just like the amount of times that his word has affected everybody. And so he's a really powerful pastor as well. And so it's just the amount of Christianity, I work with a lot of other conservatives as well, but the amount of people that I've seen come to God in the last year has just been mind blowing to me.
Wow. That is so encouraging. I mean, obviously I was only there for 4 days, and I knew exactly what I was doing on Sunday because I had a church service in the morning and I wanted to go to Apology in the afternoon. Next time I'm there, and I will be back because I've got clients there, I would absolutely love to visit Trinity and hear from this preacher. That sounds amazing. And the fact that you're seeing the growth is so encouraging. Romans converts people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Romans is some powerful stuff. It'll scoop at your heart pretty hard. So yeah.
Martin Luther said that every Christian should read Romans every day in its entirety. It's a long book. I mean, I think for your modern reader, it takes an hour probably to read it. So to read it every day, Martin Luther's setting a high bar. So that's okay. That's really, really cool. I wanted to ask this question about religion, which is like, what do you think of sort of this idea of the neutral, secular, public square? And to me, it seems like it's dissolving. It was very powerful in the 90s and growing up in the 2000s. Like, you weren't really allowed to talk about your faith publicly, and or use that as the basis for your reasoning morally, which in retrospect is just an absurdity that we ever went for that, especially for decades on end. What is your take on this?
I think it was exactly what you're saying. I think it was absurd. I don't. The United States was built as a Christian nation. Even if you don't want to say the difference between church separation, church and state, but culturally it's always been Christian. It's gone off Judeo-Christian values. That's how our country is built, and so it makes sense that everybody's morals are based off of their religion. Especially, I think the reason why we're starting to find this divide is the growth of atheism and nihilism throughout the United States, where, it's really hard to argue, or reason with people that aren't even like culturally Christian anymore. They're just Marxist. And like, I was talking this a lot with my friends is, Marxism has become a religion. If you don't say the right things, you don't do the right practices, you don't, wear the right stuff or post the black square, like you can get excommunicated from your own religion. And so, when you talk to somebody and you try and poke at one of these worldviews, it's because that's what I believe. And so it's become into a faith-based system of which has been counterfeit. And that's why a lot of people aren't, satisfied right now. And, they're not getting what they would normally get from Christ or, they're a real religion because they're getting this counterfeit religion. So
it's absolutely a counterfeit religion. And at the same, we no longer have the freedom of speech to blaspheme this religion. Like the thing that got me in the most trouble was during Pride Month saying pride is bad, right? You say pride is bad, you are blaspheming the religion, and the zealots who adhere to it will come after you. I think, and the thing is, they will deny that it's Marxism. And if you call it cultural Marxism, they will call you a fascist or something. Like this is now a white supremacist dog whistle or something like that. So they are doing such an effective job of controlling the language that we use and the culture. And yet it does seem that people like you and I are able to spring up and start this is an explicitly Christian show. Like if I have an atheist on, I'll let them, I'm not going to start an argument, but I will defend the faith in a heartbeat. And I think it's becoming clear to a lot of people on the right that there's no religiously neutral public square.
No, none.
Yeah. So how do you handle it on your show? How do you think about it? Do you, because I've only listened to a handful of episodes, and I the other question I wanted to ask is, if someone's going to go listen to Dunn Right, what's the first episode to pick up if they don't want to start at the most recent?
It depends on what they're looking for. So for me, I put out the goal that one of my big influences Joe Rogan. And what I like that he does is he just brings somebody in and he just picks their brain. And so for me, I just find people I find really interesting. And I just pick their brain. Okay. I'm a former EMT, so I always like to get down to the root of the issues and stuff like that. But it's always coming through. Obviously, it's coming through the scope of my Christian faith as well. It's what guides me, and what my values are. So you're gonna hear me question things through that lens. Obviously, I have some people that are on that are not of the faith, or probably don't share the same faith values that I do. But it's for that reason. I want to pick their brain. Why would you think that? People who are pro-choice. Why are you pro-choice? And trying to find out that argument without using religion. That's been one of my goals recently too. So it's just been like that. I had an episode with Angel Quiros where we talked about the role of Christianity in
he's a New York Young Republican guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I love his Twitter. He's great.
Yeah, I like that guy. He's really awesome. So a lot of people might not know him, but that's probably one of my favorite conversations that I've had. Is just we break down, we just kind of discuss. Is there room for the Christianity and the conservative movement with such a big tent, and the moving of the Overton window from the liberals? There's a lot of atheists that don't feel like they have a home, and they're automatically defaulted as right wing, and needing to define what a conservative is. And obviously we want to be welcoming, we want to have a huge party, but at the same time defining what we believe in, and not just whitewashing things to be 10 years ago Democrats.
Well, let me ask you this: would you agree that Christianity is the most inclusive worldview available to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't. The poor can be Christians, the rich, anybody of any cultural background, as much ethnic background whatsoever. There's Christians everywhere for that reason.
Right. Yeah. And even non-Christians are still made in the image of God and have inherent value that is objective outside of ourselves, such that we have to respect them and protect, not just support vocally, but literally go out and protect their human rights, their right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And the problem is, I just don't see that in any other, I don't see any other worldview that's not Christian that provides for that, the kind of universality of man that is necessary for certainly any kind of democratic government, right? How can we have a democratic government if Christians are left out, or if I mean, certainly now the race thing is becoming a topic again. So I think Christianity, not just there has to be room for Christianity on the right, but they're like there must be room for Christianity on the right. The right cannot exist without Christians included in that, because then neither side will have an objective cause to protect all people, and all people's rights. Let's get into the politics, man. I want to talk about. I mean, we're talking about it's all politics, but Afghanistan. You were in the Air Force, as a firefighter.
Yeah.
Did you serve in Afghanistan? Where did you serve?
No, so I was in Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE during my time. I did a lot of operations that helped support missions in Afghanistan. But yeah,
and the environment in those countries is very different from Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, I mean it depends on where you go. So there's some places that we're secret friends with them, and people
Qatar.
don't want to be Qatar, where they don't want us to. UAE, when I was there, we were secret there. We weren't supposed to be there as well. And there was, Taliban and Al Qaeda in the area, we were told, when we were there. So when
you say secret, you mean like no? Okay, I thought you meant sort of like nobody knows about it, but you mean nobody could know about it.
Oh yeah, at the time, no one could know about it. Like a lot of countries foster their relationships off basically this default that everybody hates the United States and the Middle East.
Really?
And then what's crazy is what President Trump did during that time was he goes, all of you are secretly helping us. Like you could all be friends in the open. And that's
President Trump said that.
I mean, not in that many words, but it's just like, that's basically the strategy that he used is like, hey guys, you're working with us. You're also working with us. Why can't you guys work together? It's
this is the Abrahamic Accords. Is that what the treaties that he put through with the UAE and everybody? Yeah. Okay. So can you talk a little bit more about your experience though? Because I think first of all, the Middle East. I've traveled a lot around the world, but the Middle East is in particular a place I haven't visited outside of a few like very short stays. But it appears to me that anywhere in the Middle East is like an alien culture to your average American. But Afghanistan in particular seems to be, I don't like the way a lot of conservatives describe like Afghanistan because it sounds so harsh, but there is sort of this perspective that it seems to be extremely primitive compared to the UAE or Qatar.
Yeah. So it's really hard to explain. So for me, the Middle Eastern culture in general, and is based off of God willing, right? They have a saying, I can't remember what it is in Farsi, but it was like basically when God wants it to happen, it'll happen. And if God wants it to happen, it'll happen. And so they have a kind of laissez-faire attitude. So with military members and stuff like that, they think when a dictator comes into power, it's well, that's what God wanted, or their God, I guess. And so,
this is almost Calvinism.
Really, yeah, it's like Calvinism to the extreme, right? And then, the others, so those are the more friendly Muslims, and then the more scary Muslims take the opposite approach of we have to be the people who act out God's will. They're God's will, I guess. And so, unfortunately, the United States works with a lot of the people that are very laissez-faire. When I was working through, security was very loose and lax. Training was very loose and lax because they were just well, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And so it led to a lot of problems. It was a lot of training issues when we were trying to train people from the Middle East. And so it was just a big cultural barrier that a lot of people had to move forward. And so what's funny is as Afghanistan became more Americanized, you saw that it got a lot safer. And so I hate to be the American exceptionalism type of guy, but even if with the Muslim culture yeah, but
please don't hate to be on this show. I encourage American.
No, yeah, but I'm pretty open to my worldview. What works for Russia works for Russia. What works for Sweden works for Sweden. But it just seemed like America's way worked really well in Afghanistan, and to kind of see it fall apart quickly, it's kind of disheartening,
Yeah, I'm wondering almost if this laissez-faire attitude toward sort of the cosmic involvement or the sovereignty of God, it contributed at all to the rapidity with which we were pushed out and the Afghani army just crumbled? Do you think that that's the case, that the people on our side are more like,
So for me, Taliban and ISIS are just so brutal. I think the difference between, Joe Biden and Trump was like he did what he said he was going to do, and but the problem is like the Taliban does what they say they're going to do as well. So when they say like, hey, if you're on a plane to the United States and you left and we find your family, we're going to kill them. They're going to kill them. And so I think, having that reputation of, pulling young women out in the streets and making them sex slaves and, being very brutal, very demonic. I don't have another word for it. I mean, there's no good in these people. At least things like that. So like, a lot of these generals were bribed, or blackmailed. And so the problem is like when the United States decided that they were going to leave them and that they were going to, I think people don't understand is like, there's a lot of countries we never left. Like we never left Korea. We never left Germany. We never left Japan. We never left, parts of Britain as well. So, I mean, it's just,
this is actually one of the questions I wanted to ask, which was, what, from your perspective as someone who served, what would have been the feasibility of just staying in the country indefinitely with like a few thousand troops and just like, isn't that kind of worth it to stabilize an entire region of the most violent part of the planet?
So yeah, I mean, it works for other nations. And what I think Donald Trump doesn't get enough credit for. So when I was in the military, I saw a lot of the United States was getting taken advantage of a lot, and Democrats then like take that out on the military industrial complex of the military. But in reality, it's like, I would say, the United States lack of negotiation abilities in like the UN. So like, we have thousands of troops in Germany, and the whole purpose of having troops in Germany was to protect them from Russia, in which now they're buying oil from them. It's kind of like defeating the purpose. So there's certain areas where I'm like, okay, like it's time to pull the troops out from Germany. Like there's no reason to have them there. Whereas I think the troops in Afghanistan were serving a purpose. I think, there was a calming, force of having the United States there, and pulling them out, I feel like too quickly, which is what we did, is what caused this rapid collapse.
I think the one thing I think both sides, everyone agrees on right now, is that tactically we appear to have had no plan whatsoever. It seems from the outside to be that just one day someone was like, all right, today's the day, let's go. And by the way, we're going to leave tens of thousands of firearms, thousands of vehicles, hundreds of aircraft, and make an army of the most evil people on the planet. It sounds so stupid, and it's hard to believe. And of course, I think we probably both agree that Joe Biden himself is not actually making any of these decisions. Have you looked at the White House staff, like the roster, ever?
Yeah, they're just it's Obama part 2, and a lot of what we were
Clinton
getting in
part 3.
Yeah, Clinton part 3. And to kind of give people who really don't understand, like Democrats in the military, they're the worst. And so like under the Obama administration, this is just something I can attest to personally. People forget we got sequestered and we didn't get paid, and how that allowed for a lot of people, that opened up a lot of possibilities of being bribed and all that kind of stuff as well. I was bringing my own toilet paper to work because they told us that toiletries and all that kind of stuff was
really
on our own. I deployed without the necessary cold weather gear in the middle of the winter, which most people were like, oh, it's UAE or Qatar in the middle of the winter, it's got to be 75 degrees, and was getting like 30-20 degrees in the middle of the day.
Oh, because in the middle of the day, really?
Yeah. The wind chill and everything. Yeah. And so like I was like sitting on a flight line freezing, and seeing guys come home from deployments and to Afghanistan, and then handed a pink slip and laid off due to force reduction techniques. the Obama administration did not treat us very well. They treated us like rapists. They treated us like bigots, because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed during that time. And I'm gonna tell you, a lot of people, even the hardcore Christians were like, "Hey, you know what, man? We don't agree on this, but if you got my back, I got your back." And so, like, they used the military as an enemy to unite, their base, and they treated us like an enemy. And so, with this Biden administration, this shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody when day one they were sleeping in a parking garage near the Capitol, protecting them, and they weren't getting food. They weren't, they were sleeping on the concrete. They weren't being able to call their families or let them know. They weren't given a direct timeline of when they were going to go home. I mean, this is just how Democrats treat the military. And it's like, I hate to say that, but that's just how they're just terrible at treating the military.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought it up, because I've never heard anyone in the service ever talk really about what it was like being under the Obama administration in terms of how they were treated by the government and the civil authorities. So do you have any other stories like that? Because do you talk about it on your show? Because I highly encourage you to.
Oh yeah, I mean, I really don't. It's just because it's like I feel like it's beating a dead horse, and maybe maybe I just feel like a lot of people understood that, but I guess not.
Everyone knows the Obama administration was bad, but especially like in our generation. I mean, my first vote ever when I was 18 was in 2012 for Barack Obama, and I had to come around now. And in retrospect, I can look back at those policy decisions and realize like Iran was a complete disaster. And they still claim it as a victory, which is it's the one thing that Democrats are somehow capable of doing that Republicans, I think there's just generally speaking more honor on the right, and so they just aren't able to bring them. Trump did it all the time. He just, everything was a win, everything was a victory. Like if it involved him, he did it like perfectly, and it was great, and it was this exaggeration that is amazing. But on the left, they can have an utter failure and claim it as like a complete success, which they've done incredibly with this Afghanistan pullout, like the most obviously terrible thing ever. We're seeing people fall off of airplanes and the numbers around the weapons and everything. I mean, I've seen videos of groups of Afghanis that supported America just getting shot in the back of the head, and it's absolutely brutal. But you feel like you have to watch it because you are. I mean, do you agree with? Are you in general sort of on board with the American project of being an imperial nation?
Yeah, I mean, so like,
good, me too.
But like, I'm very cautious with it, like obviously, I don't, if things are going well in a nation, I don't think, we should war hawk. I'm not like that. But I definitely think, like situations like this, it's like, it's really disheartening because like, I tell people to put this into perspective. 2002 we went into Afghanistan, or 2001, 2002 we went to Afghanistan, and it's now 20 years later. There is a whole generation of people that don't know anything other than United States, Afghanistan. Yeah, they never wore hijabs,
and then pulling out, you make twice as many enemies.
Yeah, and so not only are you letting those people down, but now those people do not look at the United States in a very friendly way, and we've also made a lot of enemies of our current allies, where, I don't know if you saw the parliament speech from the Englishmen, who they were like, we had no idea the United States was pulling out, and they got left behind too. That's another thing that people aren't talking about right now, is the amount of French and English and NATO forces that were there too, and watching the United States leave. And they were just like, hey guys, what about us? And so it's just it goes back to what you're saying, is the ability to call a win when it's a loss. I don't understand. Like, they redefine terms so often. Like Obama during the surge, they redefined what a casualty was, and a lot of people don't understand that. So like under the Bush administration, a casualty was killing anybody who wasn't the target, and then under Obama administration, we just assumed anybody who was with the target is also a bad guy too. And so obviously they dramatically are able to put the statistics in your face. And I say statistics never lie, but liars use statistics. So,
One thing I want to do on this show, because I feel like one thing that happens all the time is that we're blaming this all on Biden, and we know that Biden's not making any of the real decisions. So the question is like, who's actually behind the scenes at the White House, kind of pulling the strings on these things? And so I just want to name him because he's awful. His name's Jake Sullivan. He's a national security advisor. This dude is like, he's like 40 years old. He's a young guy, 44. He's 44 years old. He's born the day before my birthday. And this dude is a boy, and he's the national security advisor to the president. He's never done anything in his life that would qualify as like real work. Okay. He graduated from Yale and just immediately went and started working for the government, worked for the Obama administration, worked for the Clinton presidential campaign. He has no real world experience whatsoever. And this boy is basically responsible for this entire pullout. And he's one of the people that got on TV and acted like he's the guy that said, oh, well, you know, we've been using helicopters to evacuate embassies
and
the whole
even
time.
CNN.
And the reporter's like, what? Like,
even the liberal media is calling him on that. Yeah.
Even the press, who are so one-sided, are calling him out. And it's like, about time, but you know, too little, too late. So I think we do this all the time too. Like, did you see the when the Pediatrician Association of the United States or whatever came out and said that, you know, there's no evidence that masking is bad for early childhood development? And it's like, I want to find out either who the idiot social media intern is that wrote that and just name them, but actually more importantly, who's in charge of the you know, American Pediatric Society or whatever the organization, like who's at the top there that such an idiotic statement could come out? You know, a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, we saw this tweet out of Santa Clara where they had broken code saying like, if COVID is true, but it was an infinite loop. And I've actually been talking about this with a lot of my local friends lately, but have you just noticed that like there are no smart people in government at all? It's not that they always, or they're constantly screwing up, but like usually they're doing the right thing. It's that I have not seen the right thing come out of a government employee in like 15 years.
No, yeah.
Right? Can you name a good thing?
So, no, you're talking to a guy who works with the VA a lot. So, the problem with government, you know, Reagan said it best, you know, the government grew beyond the consent of the governed. And, you know, we have this bureaucracy, this fifth branch of government that just does whatever it wants. It has no accountability to anybody. The FCC, the FEC, the IRS, like they can go out and make regulations and become into law. Now we saw the CDC is telling people that they can't evict people from their homes. And the other part too is we're getting to the point where, we're getting to the point where it's going to the Supreme Court case. Kavanaugh, thank God, threw it out, and then they're still doing it. And so, like, it's getting to a point where it's like, and you know, I said this a couple of times in the last couple of shows. It's like I don't know what else to tell you guys. Like, if you don't see this, I don't know how else to explain this. Like, they're just completely disregarding Supreme Court. If Trump had completely disregarded the Supreme Court, they would have him impeached, brought up on charges, dragged out of the White House the next day. But you saw how quickly it did with the January 6th stuff, and Biden get away with whatever he wants. And so,
let me tell you, I was at January 6th. I did not go in the Capitol. FBI did come and knock on the door, but not before they called my grandmother first to find out more about me. In actuality, it was an intimidation tactic, right? You call grandma first before you even call me or my parents. Then they call my parents. Then they call me, and I didn't pick up because I was still getting like my lawyer involved. And then they show up at my house. And at the time I lived in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, like off the grid almost. And so when they showed up, I was like, hey, I know you're doing your job. I appreciate law enforcement. And I'm not having a conversation with you without a lawyer present. As soon as I get my lawyer involved, they back off because they got like 100,000 leads. And here's the craziest thing, actually. So I was present, and okay, look, actually, we don't need to get into it. I don't want to get into it too because I don't. They will ruin your life. I mean, they will show up on your doorstep. The FBI now, and they've done it to hundreds of people. And it's using the government as a weapon for political purposes. and it's insane. I want to ask you about the Maricopa County audits.
All right. Yeah.
Where are we, man? Where are we on this? I haven't heard about it. I heard anything about it in a while. And if you're local, hopefully you're hearing more than I am.
So the initial results came in, and thousands of ballots were, there's suspicious circumstances. They weren't folded. They were marked improperly. There's possible duplicates. We're looking at double counts, addresses that don't exist, people that are supposed to be or that are registered that shouldn't be registered. I mean, there's just hundreds of thousands of problems. It's everything that we knew. I was sounding the alarm on this 3 weeks before the election when Maricopa County decided that it was going to extend its voter registration deadline until like basically the day before the election. And then it took like a week and a half for it to go get brought up to the Arizona Supreme Court, and it was thrown out. So there's just so many irregularities. And being from Las Vegas, this is nothing new for me.
Right. Nevada had also our boy Steven Crowder, didn't he go? Wasn't it Las Vegas addresses where he sent his intern to like all these fake addresses just to demonstrate like beyond I'm gonna put this on YouTube and probably immediately get canceled. But
YouTube's a waste of time anyway.
They've got evidence now, right? Huh?
I was saying YouTube's a waste of time. That's why I pulled my stuff off of YouTube. But a lot of so
you did? Really?
Yeah, I did pull myself off YouTube because it's just it's not worth the time and the effort. But the thing with, I guess my big thing is with Las Vegas, and so people, I've been in politics since like 2008-ish, like dramatically in it. We exposed Acorn in 2008 during the Obama administration. People forget about Acorn. And they were
that got memory.
I was in the room when the Republicans were going through the voter registration rolls, and they were finding Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, the whole offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys were all registered to vote in Dallas. And the worst part is we found it too late. And the worst part was some of them voted. And so they never cleaned that up, and they haven't. I've been part of elections where Harry Reid went into an election with a 20% approval rating, and all of a sudden the power goes out in rural Nevada. And then all of a sudden the they want to talk about keeping the polls open, except not when they're ahead. And so I've seen a lot of this stuff, especially from like the Clintons and the Reids in Nevada. I was really hoping I would never see it in Arizona, but it looks like it's come here too. What I want to tell people is this is not the magic pill. Like, Trump is not going to be reinstated in office based off of this. But what it does is sets precedent for us to go in and make a whole bunch of changes on voter registration and voting laws, so that this doesn't happen again. Arizona's done a really good job of like really cracking down on voter ID and all that other stuff since this has happened. And we've been able to point to the justification, and it hasn't gotten any blowback whatsoever. I hope other states do this as well. And what this could lead to is possibly a impeachment in 2022, or it would be 23 when that new Congress comes in, of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But it's like, this is 4D chess, because if you pull it now, somehow you get it now, we're dealing with Kamala Harris. And then if we somehow get both, now we're dealing with Nancy Pelosi. And then we're dealing with an incompetent Secretary of State.
But like, as bad as Nancy Pelosi isn't she still better than Kamala and Biden?
I mean,
or maybe not, because she's more effective at,
you're asking me to choose between the leader of Japan, Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler. Which one do I want? I don't want any of them, but who
on the Republican side isn't completely awful, because this is something I like to talk about with my Republican friends, is that 80% of Republicans are trash. And that's being generous. 98%. Thank you. Yeah. But who do you like other than Gosar?
I love Gosar. He's my homie. I love Carrie Lake. So she's running for governor in Arizona. She's a rock star. She's going to be, so she makes DeSantis look liberal.
Really?
So she actually said at one of her speeches that she had on Sunday that she's tired of watching governors wait for what DeSantis wants to do, and then just doing whatever DeSantis does. Like, she wants to be the person who leads. the country on all these kind of things. Ducey has not been very kind to us. I like Madison Cawthorn. I some people don't. I do.
Yeah, his origin story is a little beat up at this point, but
yeah, you know, but I like the way he talks. You know, no one remembers the people who didn't sign the Declaration of Independence. You know, that's but right. I'm always a huge Rand Paul fan. So like that's my hero right there.
Yeah, Rand Paul's been doing great work during COVID. I mean, his exchanges with Fauci are legendary, and everyone should go watch them. And I'm sure then you like his father.
Oh yeah. I was in Nevada when Ron Paul won electoral votes for the primary in 2008, and they like refused to seat him at the convention, and then they had their whole convention. I was like, man, these guys are awesome. But and then I was a Tea Party Republican growing up, so cool. Yeah, I love Ron Paul. So I love Ron.
Yeah, I wish. Well, maybe I don't wish, because I think that, you know, changing your opinion over time and being kind of from a different background and then a landing here gives you a perspective that's valuable. I do want to know, though, what do we do about this problem of squishiness in the Republican Party? And also, how do you root it out at the local level? Because I'm getting really involved with local politics. And the one thing that I've noticed is that even at the rot runs extremely deep, all the way deep down to the leadership at the local level of many of these institutions. So many of these people are state employees, so they've got a conflict of interest there with pretty much any position that they hold. The guy that runs the Maryland Young Republicans right now is a pro-choice atheist, and he just won election. And it's like, what are we doing that a pro-choice atheist runs the Young Republicans in Maryland? I don't know. But like, what do we do at the local level to reverse the rot?
You gotta show up, like, and so like there's a lot of people that complain about this stuff, and then I never see them at the meetings ever at all. And so I've definitely taken an approach: if you don't show up, shut up. Like, yeah. If you don't want to go to a county Republican Party meeting on a Wednesday night, yeah, then that's what you get. Like, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. Accountability it comes from participation in the project. As somebody who's worked in county parties, state parties, and just been around just election officials in general, it's always the people who show up, and it's always the people who have like never anything to do on a day that everybody else really has something to do. And that's how you kind of get those people. Politics, you can make a quick, fast buck, and it attracts a lot of grungy, disgusting people. And you know, there's every once in a while there's some good ones that are in there for the right reasons, but you know, we got to go.
Is absolutely astonishing. Look, can I tell you a story real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
There's a county. I love just calling these people out. I won't mention her by name because it would be,
call her by name. I don't care. I love it.
No, she's a sweetheart, and I like her personally, but she's soft, incredibly soft. This one, when the vaccine comes out, she posts like vaccine propaganda on her Facebook. Okay, running a Young Republican chapter in Maryland. And I meet her at an event, and she's got this profile photo with like the get vaccinated thing. And I'm just like, hey, why are you posting propaganda for the other side on your Facebook? And how, like, can you possibly justify that at this point in the game? And she stutters, gets out her phone, and changes her profile photo right there. And I was like, exactly. Like, that's like, I shouldn't have to tell you, but that's what you never should have even gone. Like, you need to know that it's wartime right now. Like, it's not a peacetime. Like, oh, we've got a lot of common ground with the other side. No, we have no common ground with the other side. They do not share our premises. And like, we need to get all the Christians on one side, because those are the only people that have got like a metaphysical sort of grounding for making anything happen realistically. And then like, we cannot have we really have to be harder and just more clear, I think, with the people who are in positions of power, that like, why are you being an idiot? Why are you being a squish? Why are you, Steve Bannon calls it managed decline. Why are you participating in the managed decline of America? I won't participate in that. I don't want to participate in that. I want to be as opposed to that as I possibly can. I want to give you the last word. We've touched on a lot of subjects today. Do you have any, first of all, do you have anything that we didn't cover that you just want to let the audience know about? Second of all, who are you? Where can people find you? And what are your asks for my audience?
So I'll just I'm James Dunn at Dunn Right Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Dunn Right Podcast. I'm on Twitter, Dunn Right Tweets. I've gotten a lot of trouble with Twitter, so
I want to know, have you been banned from anything? Have you?
No. Oh, so I got banned for 2 weeks on Instagram one time, and then I got an email saying, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. But it was the week before the election, and then I got it back the week after the election. I thought pretty convenient. Pretty convenient. That was part of what they called the purge or whatever. And that's kind of how like everything kind of started with me. It's like I was one of the purge people, and I went after big tech pretty hard. But for me, it's
we
like
talk about that too. Big tech is a problem.
For me, it's Republicans and conservatives. We've gone past the time in which we no longer have, like, you're going to lose something. Like, it's going to be a fight. You're going to lose something. You need to go in and give everything to God. And once you give it to God, it's not lost. Right. For me, you can't be a squish. You can't be a whatever. It's time to stand and, put on the armor of God, and it's time to fight. Amen. Yeah. David didn't back down from Goliath. So it's time. And, all these Christians don't want to get involved in politics, and, they think whatever. It's like, if the United States goes, where's Christianity go to? And so, it's not going to Australia. It's not going to England. It's not going to France. And people won't, they're just so contained in their little bubble right now. And you got to get out of that bubble. You're possibly going to lose your job. Your kids are probably going to get homeschooled. That's what it is now. Stand up and fight.
If you're sending your kids to public school right now, you are a part of them.
Yeah. And so for me, it's just like, it's get in the fight, man. Get in the fight or lose the country. Those are your options. I mean, we don't have that option anymore. I mean, you guys decided to sit back and be nice when they were taking down the manger in 2005 or whatever, when all this stuff was starting and the attack on Christianity. It's like, it's too late now. Yep. You've allowed them to advance to the point in which there is no return. So we either fight now and hold the line, or Christianity's done.
That's it for this episode of the Justice Eapen Show. Thank you again to our guest, James Dunn from the Dunn Right Podcast. Once again, I am Justice Eapen. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube. Hit that bell for notifications. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Justice Eapen. So add me on all of those, and join us again next week on the Justice Eapen Show.